Hi there, welcome to Tony Tutorials. These tutorials that I'm going to give you now are to help you work with Blender. And these tutorials are for people who have absolutely no idea what Blender is, how you get Blender, how you use Blender. And I'm going to take them right from the very beginning. So if we go from the beginning, what we have to do is download Blender. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this off and I'm going to go to Google, and let's actually go to Google. Start at the beginning, I'm skipping things. I'm going to go to Google and I'm just going to type in Blender. And it's going to say Blender download. Well, we want to download Blender. It's open source software developed in Sweden, I believe, or Switzerland, by a very kind gentleman who bought the bankrupt stock. I think he was an engineer, for €100,000, and then he put it out onto the open source software market where we can get it for free. It's these tutorials for free. Why should somebody give you something for free and then you pay for them to try and learn how to use it? Anyway, we're on Blender 2.74, we press that. And now we see a Blender page come up. There's Blender 2.76, and we'll just bring that down. Sorry about the sniffles, got a bit of a cold. You've got different places you can download it from: America, Denmark, Netherlands 1, Netherlands 2 for 64-bit, which I'm using. And this will go directly onto your laptop, onto your desktop, and unzip itself, and you've got Blender, or you can use it as a zip file, again choosing USA, Denmark, or whatever for the 64-bit or 32-bit. So click and it downloads. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes to download. Once it's downloaded, we can click off that and we can click onto our Blender icon wall. We've got ourselves a three-dimensional piece of software worth quite a few £1,000 if you were buying it on the open market, and now you've got it for absolutely free thanks to blender.org. So let's begin to learn how to work our way around the 3D screen and start to look at using Blender. Now, the first thing we're presented with here is a flash screen. This is a flash screen. I'm not going to click it off at the moment. The simple reason for that is because we need to go through what the flash screen is. This is quite important when you open Blender, because there's several different things on there that you can utilize. Most people just click it off and carry on. I find it worth having a look at. We've got Blender 2.76 release candidate. That's its coding number, what release it is. We have a date here. It's the American 09/17/1448 was the time this was released. In Britain it would be 17/09/1448. And hash C is how many versions or how many updates it's had. This had 586,000, the E being 1,030. Now we've got links, donators. We go to donations, development fund, PayPal. That's if you want to give them a little bit of money. And if you get picture work to Mr. Spielberg and he pays you 25 million, you can give Blender a little bit of money for putting you there in front of Mr. Spielberg. Credits. Credits are, there you are, there's the people, comments and whatever, and they all work as a little organisation, as a kind of a Blender Foundation, where people who are very good at using Blender and don't like too much criticism can go on to this format. Down okay, I'll just close the tab on there. Close that. Release log, we've gone through manual. Now this is important. You can go straight, think I'm stuck on something about Blender. What can I do? Well, we've got what we're doing now, getting started, about Blender, installing Blender. Well, we've gone through that through a physical camera instead of reading all the documentation, which I hate reading documentation on computers. I like to read a book. I don't like This must be old age, I can't get my head right. It gives you selections about the interface, editor, data system modeling, blah blah blah, rigging, which we'll get into, animation, physics, rendering. We'll try and cover all these over a period of time that we're working with Blender. Let's cut that down. The Blender website we've covered, and Python API reference. That means writing your own Python script within Blender. So if you want to change certain things, you write Python script. Python is its language that it uses. Interaction. That's how do you like to interact with the program itself. Well, we can use a Blender default, and that's how it's set up by Blender. Or you can use the 3D Max. You press that and it will give you the same simulation as the 3D Max program by Maya. Blender 2012 Experimental. Well, if this is a new one, I've never used it, but I would assume it goes back to using the same format as the 2012 Experimental, and we come to Maya, which is the same makers as 3D Max, so you can use your Blender and your mouse the same way as 3D Max or Maya would use it themselves. So there's your flash screen. It's the first thing you see in Blender, and let's just click that off. And that moves this little cross, which I'll explain later. I'm bringing down a drop bar. I'm going to put my start key up here for demonstration on what I click and what I don't click. So now we have the default 3D screen in Blender to start doing a little bit of learning progression to make 3D objects. Okay, here's our default screen. So the next thing that I'd like to do in this tutorial is user preferences. Now, user preferences are so important to set up what you want to do and how you want to use Blender. So if we press File and we go to User Preferences, and the first thing we'll go to is Interface. Now let me move me out of the way here so we can see what we're doing. And you'll notice tooltips, Python tooltips. These are all defaults in Blender, which I generally, warnings, leave them alone. The only one that I really would use, I think, is rotate around selection. If you tick that, it means that you can rotate your 3D screen around your selected object without losing your selected object and having to go back to it. Zoom to mouse position. It allows you to zoom into the object instead of into the center of the screen. Personally, I like to zoom into the center of the screen and just move my 3D viewport around to find the object within the screen itself. So these are user preferences, and we're going to go through each one bit by bit and see what they all do. Now, is there anything on there that I've missed? Global scene, we don't need that. Auto perspective, we don't want that. Open mouse over, maybe. So it'll just open when you hover your mouse over your software. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, let's go to our editing. Now, with editing, there's not a lot there you can change or want to change without affecting the program. Global undo, it's how many steps back you go to undo a scene, set at 32, and memory limit is how many gigabytes of memory you're using if you increase this. Just leave that ticked. But if you want to increase your steps, that's entirely up to you, and play with it if you wish. I'd leave this page exactly as I see it. So let's move on to the next one. Input. Now we are. Presets. You can make it as on the flash screen in the beginning. You can make your mouse and your screen work like 3D Max. You're in Blender already, or how you work with Maya if you've ever used Maya. I'm staying with my preset of Blender. Emulate 3-button mouse. Now this is if you haven't got a mouse and you're working on a pad or a notepad and you're in the airport and you want to continue your sculptures as you're waiting for the plane. You can use your keyboard to simulate your mouse. I think you can use your Alt to move, your Shift to move, and your Control to move. I'm not pressing that because I've got a 3-button mouse. Continuous grab, that's just if you press G you can grab your item. We'll move on. Select with the left or the right. Well, with Blender you select with your right. You can select with the left if you wish to do so. Most software applications, you select with your left mouse. Blender does it with the right mouse. There's reasons for doing that, which we'll get into a little later on. If we go down here, we've got turntable, trackball, or turntable or trackball. Well, I leave this as a preset to use the default what they've given me because I find that the easiest way to do it. Reverse mouse, so everything you do reverses, walk or fly. All this, just leave these alone. They're not going to affect your working in Blender at all. Free, orbit, turntable, trackball, different methods of using your mouse around your 3D screen. This is your shortcut keys, keyboard, Control Alt W, duplicate window, reload startup file, keyboard Control N. So these are all your shortcuts you can use on your number pad or your keyboard. Do not touch these. There is absolutely no point, otherwise you're going to get confused and go everywhere where you don't want to be. So just leave them the way that Blender has actually put them into configuration for you. So let's move on to the next. So let's now move on to add-ons. Now, these are Python scripts that have been written by other people, so we can use in Blender as an add-on. And what I generally use this little chap here, he's running away, and these are empty boxes when you turn Blender on, and what I'm going to do is tick all the empty boxes, so I've got all my add-ons already enabled, so I don't have to bother with, oh my God, why isn't that working? It's because I haven't clicked the add-on. Why isn't that working? Because I haven't clicked the add-on. So generally I go through this and I click all the add-ons, and there are quite a few. You can make things walk. You can use all kinds of different fantastic wavefront OBJ. That means you can import an OBJ file. Human make clothes. I hasn't ticked. I should possibly tick that. Yes. So now I can make clothes in human. Make target. Make human walk. It's very useful. We'll get into that a little later on our opening scene. And we come all the way down here. Render Roy. That will not click. It's for some reason it's not added or it doesn't work. Anyway, these are all your add-ons. User, enable, disable, 3D view, add curve, add mesh. This is your important section here. Clicking these boxes here and then save as user settings. Let's move on to themes. These are all the different types of themes you can have within your 3D viewport and your surrounding areas, which we will go into a little later on the next tutorial. Now presets. Presets gives you different, there you go, there's your 3D Max preset if you want to use 3D Max and you're used to it. That's quite a nice one. You got black and you got some pink in there, it's black on black, and I quite like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that as my user interface. Let me just take a look at my user interface a second. Yeah, my camera's there, it's a light, so I'm not going to change it. If you want to change the color of anything, say I want to change anything in my 3D view, I have a wire grid, that's a bit grey, maybe I want to change the color of that or bring it a little richer. Let's see what we can do with that grid. Bring that down, make it this, make it the other. Wire grid, grey, so look what we've got. If I pull this down. There you go, it changes the grid. I want that grid a bit more highlighted so I can actually see what's happening on my grid. Do I want it grey or red or real hard red? No, I'm going to keep it at white, but I can see it clearly. I'm going to change my camera to a deepish red, I believe, because I do think red on black looks very, 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 very good. So you can alter your whole interface using themes, and if you want to change all the colours on your interface, it's going to take you forever to do. Well, what I generally do is I look at something and I think, well, that there isn't lighting up too well. I should change the colour of that, or maybe I should bring this text here to white. White on black looks better than black. And you'll find on here, I think it'll say text. Somewhere on here you'll see text. Text highlights. Well, we know the text highlights black, so tab outline, region background. Now, I'm not going to go into changing text at the moment. That's something for you to look at, but I'll probably change my text a little later on. Using these, I'm going to change save my user preferences, because I do like the black, the grey instead of the grey on grey, which I think looks pretty dreadful. So let's move on to the next, I think. Right, now we come to the file. Now this is most important here, this auto run Python scripts. Very important in Blender. Because when somebody writes a Python script and you download it, something new, there's a thing called Hair Lab or a Grass Lab. There's a lip syncing Python add-on that you can add into your Blender program. If that auto run Python script is not ticked, you won't be able to run them. It's that simple. Everything else I would leave alone. The load UII, which I believe is loading pre-existing program. If you want to go and load Make Human or something, this will allow you to go into your file and load Make Human. So keep these ticked on, and I wouldn't play about with the presets or the default settings that Blender have already given you, but that is very important. Auto Python scripts. And finally we've got system. Again, I would leave this generally alone. The compute devices for your rendering. We'll get on to rendering a little later. I do not have a Coda extra rendering card in here, so I have to use the CPU that I've already been given in my computer. I'm not going to go to PC World and ask them to put in a new graphics card on a laptop. Maybe on a bigger computer, bigger system, if I was doing really high resolution rendering, I might go and get the card put in, which would give me a Coda, which will help me to render faster. But this little PC renders reasonably quickly. So that's our Blender user preferences. So that's it for this tutorial. Blender user preferences, setting up your background, and we'll come back with how to use the screen and selecting different objects in the next tutorial. So thank you for watching, kids, and hope you enjoy this and stay with the program, and I will see you soon. Ciao. Take care of yourself. Stay out of trouble.